season, Lord, that we would focus our hearts and our minds on what it's truly about, and that's you. Lord, as we carry out the business this morning of the school district, I pray that we would seek to honor you in all that we say and all that we do, that we would submit to your guidance, your will, and your way. And it's in your holy name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to start the workshop for December 17th, 2024. I would like the record to reflect that Ms. Hanson is not present and Mr. Alviner will be a few minutes late. Just welcome citizens of Clay County. I want to take the opportunity to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to attend today's school board workshop. This workshop is our opportunity as your elected representatives to collaborate openly among ourselves and make decisions that will decide the future direction of our public schools and the education of our children here in Clay County. There will be an opportunity for the public to ask questions at the end of the workshop presentation. Questions will be allowed. Public comment will not be allowed. If you wish to ask a question, please fill out a comment card and hand the card to a deputy. Your participation is welcomed and appreciated. And for this meeting, because Mr. Alvera is a few minutes late, we're going to go ahead and start with the agenda. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr.
Hi, good morning. I hope everybody's doing well. First of all, happy holidays, Merry Christmas to all, and a happy New Year coming up. I don't want to set any expectations on the board, but this is traditionally the shortest workshop of the year. I've done a statistical analysis over the past couple of years, and I'm just kind of throwing that out there to everybody in the room so they can hear that loud and clear. In all seriousness, though, typically those that are observant, I typically have a blue book, and it's usually about 4 times that size. But during the holidays, typically the amount of and the volume of work goes down due to the winter recess and the change of semesters. So in regard to the last meeting, traditionally, statistically, because you know that I love data, statistically the December and the May board meetings have the most celebrations. So while I loved every second of that, I recognize that there was a lot of celebrations that occurred. Usually December and May are the 2 months that occurs the most. On average, the total amount, and I didn't do this data, I did this data for a previous year, the average amount is roughly 26 minutes in a typical meeting, if you average them all together. So this particular meeting, we have recognition of our academic team champions. We've done that before, but on a sad note, the passing away of Greg Martin, who has led that group for a long time, recently has passed away. There'll be a little bit of a remembrance of him. Made such an impact on so many students. He was an Oak Leaf High teacher. Had a smile on his face every time that you talked to him, and it was always about kids and had a tremendous impact on that. So just a little heads up in that regard for that particular event. And then we have the recognition of our top 5 finalists for Teacher of the Year and School-Related Employee of the Year. As you know, we went out to surprise them on, was that Friday? Okay, Seems like
I think it was.
Seems like a long time ago, but it was Friday apparently, and went out to see them. And so, just going out to schools, especially this time of year, I'll just kind of remind everybody that the number 1 objective of school is to provide students the skills that they need in order to be successful in life. Outside of that, and all of the academic stuff is great stuff. As superintendent, being in the top 10 in the state's a big deal, in a competitive sense. But school's also about making memories for students and creating an atmosphere in which students want to be there. I'll just say what I've seen this week and last week. There's a lot of memories being made out there, and the hard work of learning is important all the time, but you're seeing more of the memories being made this week than other weeks, if everybody's reading what I'm trying to put out there to people. Okay, and that's an important part. I always say when I talk to folks about learning, I really don't remember anything I learned as a student during my high school career, but I do remember participating in athletics. I remember the impact of coaches. I remember girlfriends. I remember all of those things that young men remember. I don't remember the Pythagorean theorem or when I actually learned that, right? So there is this part about making memories and the human part of what we do in the lives of young people that we can never lose sight of creating the total student experience. And whether that's through athletics, whether that's through the arts, whatever that is that reaches that student, that too is equally as important as the academic piece in what we do in the school system. So a lot of memories being made this week, for sure. I think I saw, it just so happens that like 3 schools that I went to in a row, they were all having pajama day. And I kind of said, does anybody dress up around here? What happened, right? So all of that. So next we have Human Resources Special Actions. There's none at this point. And that's followed by the minutes from the organizational meeting as well as student discipline hearings. That's followed by the personnel consent agenda. Nothing remarkable in that. That then is followed by elementary student out of town travel and the academic K-12 overnight student travel, pretty routine there. Proposed allocation changes. You've noticed that there is an allocation change for Assistant Superintendent Business Affairs. Dr. Legacchio is retiring in June. I think given the importance of the position, hiring another person early so they can work side by side is extremely important. So that position has been advertised pending board approval of this, and we're already starting that process. Monthly financial reports. That's a typical every month item. Budget amendment report, followed by deletion of certain items. Then you'd see an onslaught of operations. Let me just kind of throw some kudos out to the operations department. But the work doesn't stop, and I was kind of joking, I think, when I said to Bryce, I said, "Are you sure?" Like the construction at Lake Asbury Junior and Oak Leaf Junior. I said I was there. Well, we were there Friday, and I was looking at it. I was thinking, okay, I don't know much about construction, but is this going to happen? And no problem, Mr. Brodsky. I got you on the record, Bryce. It's recorded for everybody to see.
It'll happen.
Okay, it'll happen. Okay,
I'll
good.
say it here.
Good answer. Good
I'm
answer.
confident.
All right, so you can see a bunch of stuff. Some of them are not are very, very important, but not of the outstanding variety. Orange Park Elementary restrooms, roofing at Clay High, renovations of the restrooms at Orange Park High, 2 of those. The athletic field lighting at Orange Park High School, as well as gym locker room renovations, the updating of the project priority list for capital outlay and debt service projects, Charles E. Bennett school security lighting at Charles E. Bennett, the replacement of that and the change order related to that, Doctor's Inlet security lighting there, as well as the change order number 2 for that. Then you see Lake Asbury classroom additional items, change order to that, which is direct purchasing, which I think the board knows this, but because we're a tax-free entity, we can in fact purchase the items and therefore save the district a lot of money over the course of a project that size. So that's a pretty smart, business move there. Then you see the same thing for Oak Leaf Junior High, Orange Park Elementary restroom renovation final completion, the pre-qualification of contractors, and the work continues to go on. And then you see the Green Cove Junior High CTE lab. So a lot of ops work going on, even through the holidays, and a much more abbreviated agenda. So that's it as far as the agenda goes, Madam Chair.
We'll bring it back to the board and let the record state that Mr. Alvaro is present. I think with confusion and some things that had come up over the, I'm just going to slide this over. So
Sure.
Sorry. See faces, sorry. We were going to bring back the topic and subject of public comment and how we wanted to handle that anyways, there was a lot of confusion. So I believe that Ms. Hanson has submitted a statement that Ms. Bonnie's going to read. And then after that, I will hear from each of you and your thoughts, and we will get a clear understanding on what we want to do as a board moving forward, and then we will move forward from that. So, Ms. Bonnie.
Okay, so in Mrs. Hanson's words, Mrs. Hanson would like to keep our school board meetings like we were holding them. She wants the camera always on with the public speaking prior to the superintendent remarks. Mrs. Hanson would also like to what is being said.
Alvaro?
Yeah, as I stated the first time, I prefer to keep it the way it is. When the public speaks before the superintendent remarks, and we keep cameras on.
Ms. Dawson?
I'll let Ms. Clark
Okay.
speak first.
Let me get my idea. And for me, after receiving these many texts and phone calls and messages, I put myself back in 2020 when I was a nurse, an ER nurse who worked the front lines of COVID and was not the popular nurse at the time. Very popular now because I allow family members to see family members, and the information that I was giving was being censored no matter where I was at, no matter where I went to speak, because I spoke at many events and many meetings in defense of our children. So for me, it will never be political pressure. It will always be, one, what have I went through, and two, what is the right thing to do. So I will say that I don't care where we put it in the agenda. We could put it at the beginning, we could put it at the middle, we could put it at the end. I don't care. But for me, the cameras, I think, should stay on and should still roll. And if people want to get up and say what they want to say, it's either up to us to prove that, hey, you know what, this is what the district is actually doing. This is what the district is performing and how we're performing. I know Mr. Frosky presents facts a lot of the time. It's up to us as elected officials to say, hey, no, that's not actually what's happening.
Opportunity to come and speak. But ultimately, per y'all's board rules, the chair ultimately decides, whoever the chair is, decides kind of the order of the meetings. Now, that's something that y'all as a board can reconsider, but ultimately, it's up to the chair to decide where this happens. As far as the videotapes, I'm just going to present y'all what the law is. The decision is y'all's decision, ultimately, how y'all want to decide. Florida law requires that meetings be recorded, that public sunshine meetings be recorded in some way. So the statute actually outlines that. That'd be a brief summary of minutes. There's some local governments that have a court reporter come. That's not required, but some do that. They will actually have a court reporter record the meeting. Some put a videotape. Actually, the courts have found that a videotape does not count. If they mention COVID, they were law enforcement escorted them out of the meeting. If they called the superintendent a conservative or a liberal, that was considered abusive, and they were removed from the meeting. People were cut off when they were trying to speak. People, mothers simply coming up saying, hey, I'm concerned about the COVID policy, were saying, look, they're gavelled down saying, you're wrong, you're being abusive and law enforcement would escort them out of the meetings. That is not happening here in Clay County. An interpretation, but it's not accurate. Y'all are fulfilling the spirit of that court ruling. You're not cutting people off when they mention COVID. You're not dragging them out of the room when they say something you disagree with. You are absolutely allowing public comment within the spirit of the law. But we will look at the necessary tweaks. We will evaluate that. I will bring some recommendations. We're also going through the Neola process. But y'all follow the law. Y'all do a great job. And I want y'all to have the assurance that when you get an email saying you're breaking the law, spirit, but
Ended items, not general public comment.
correct. Correct. So the conduct they were addressing was specific. You had members of the public addressing the COVID policies, and they were trying to address board members directly, and they were. The court found that the board was abusive. It simply would. I mean, you had grandmothers that were being dragged out of the room for speaking. That's not happening here. So as far as the court was not specific as to general public comment. It really didn't contemplate that. And really what the court said is, it said, hey, your policy is unconstitutional, revise your policy. Now, obviously, based on that court ruling, all the 67 counties are looking at their policies because they all had policies forbidding you to address board members directly because that had been Florida law for generations. So that's the one nuance that's being addressed. But in my experience, I've not seen y'all drag people out of meetings, silence people, cut them off, when they call someone a liberal or conservative. That was the type of, and what the board was saying was that's abusive language. Like you calling someone a liberal or conservative is abusive language. Well, it's not. They stand up there and start cursing at you. That's probably abusive. But just stating a political opinion is not abuse. Or saying, hey, I think you guys are wrong in the way you're handling it. That's not abuse. And the court was very clear on that. And it listed specific examples. And I can provide those to you I think so y'all seen the court ruling. It's very specific what the court found. It found that it was out of control how they were handling it. So again, what y'all are doing is consistent with Florida law. Whatever decision y'all make as a board or Madam Chair you make is consistent. But I've seen some emails saying, hey, it's illegal to call off the camera. It's certainly not accomplishing giving the superintendent a chance to respond. But many of these cases, we can't respond. We just have to simply allow the public comment and just, respond to the legal process. And I know that's difficult because we all want to kind of answer, but we can't have the superintendent, we can't have board members exposed or the district or the board exposed to, additional legal challenges. So it's just something to frame it, keep it in mind. And I'm kind of the restraining force behind the scenes. I know recently there's an issue that the superintendent wanted to respond to, and that we, it seemed a very simple matter. I said, look, if you respond to this, it's going to create issues for the board. So just want to make sure we're clear on that. I do appreciate what Mrs. Hans is trying to do. She's trying to give the superintendent opportunity to respond, but sometimes it's advisable not to respond.
And I could always respond at the end anyway.
In misinformation situations, can you respond?
I wouldn't respond if it was a FERPA issue involving student records or other issues that would then create additional liability for the district. So there are quite a few times where I sit there and I listen and know that the information given is not correct, but can't respond, or it's not advisable to respond legally. But the placement of